Good evening. On this beautiful sunny evening. Although I hear it's going to change tomorrow, so see if anyone's joining us this evening. Sorry that I wasn't here yesterday. I had to reschedule it again. So I've decided I'm not going to set the date for next week. It'll either be Monday or Tuesday, depending on how my day goes. And hopefully you all get the opportunity to catch up anyway. So yeah, hi, welcome to live lesson number 6. So this is where we're going to explore the 3 principles of positivity in a bit more detail, and specifically how by intentionally applying them in our life and work we can increase our dose of happy hormones, and you'll remember that from a couple of weeks ago, and in effect equalise cortisol, which we know is good for us, and can also be very damaging when we have it in excess or for prolonged periods of time, and as a result can enhance our resilience, and that's really what this group's all about. So last week we talked about the first principle of positivity, and that was positive thought. I shared a bit more around positive thought and shared how you can apply positive thought very intentionally to increase dopamine, to increase oxytocin, serotonin and endorphins, and that's the dose model. So the second principle of positivity is positive action, and that's the focus of tonight's live lesson. So what is positive action? Well, in some ways it's obvious. This is about taking any kind of action that will ultimately lead to a positive outcome. And most of us, let's be honest, know what we need to do to improve how we feel. Not all of us, but most of us have a good sense of what that is, or to improve what we have in our lives as well. So it's rarely not knowing what to do that gets in the way of positive outcomes, and it's usually about not consciously doing it, even though perhaps we're aware that it would be the right thing or the positive thing to do. So that's what this principle is all about. It's about understanding intellectually the benefit of taking positive action and doing that really intentionally, even when we don't feel like it. And it's a really, really important one, because positive outcomes not only improve our experience, but they also give us the very thing we need to create more positive outcomes, and that's dopamine. So positive outcomes give us a sense of reward, which creates a dopamine hit, and it's dopamine that drives us to seek rewards and to take action towards achieving them. So it has a very compounding effect. So often it's the small actions that in themselves might seem very insignificant that make quite a big difference, particularly when they're joined together, if you like, and can lead to more small actions that will lead to often quite big outcomes. So the action of doing it and the outcome that it creates releases dopamine, and that activates, as I explained, our reward system, which ultimately motivates us to do more. So what constitutes positive action? So this is very different for all of us, because it's related to what we might consider to be a positive action. But here are some examples that might be useful. So the first one, which is a kind of obvious one, just going to check that there's no comments here that I haven't responded to. Say hi if you're here, and as always, do share something that's been good with us in the last week, and I'll check in with that in a moment. So yeah, we know that exercise is good for us. We don't always appreciate fully why that is. So doing any form of exercise at all is a form of positive action, as exercise induces endorphins, which you'll remember from when we talked about dose. And exercise includes any activity at all, so it doesn't necessarily mean running or cycling or going to a gym. Sometimes it's taking the stairs, sometimes it's walking, sometimes it's playing sport, sometimes it's any form of movement at all. I know that right at the beginning of lockdown, a lot of people enjoying Joe Wicks every morning. Any kind of movement that moves our body will create endorphins in our body. And so that is always a positive action, obviously as long as we're keeping ourselves safe. The second one is diet. So this isn't about being on a diet, but it's about recognising that, ultimately we are what we eat. The food that we put into our body, it can be a medicine for us, or it can actually be a poison for us. And it makes sense, therefore, that the food we put in our body would influence how our body works ultimately, and that includes our brain. So a really great principle is that the more whole a food is, so the less processed it is, the better form of action eating it is. So eating a healthy diet gives our body what it needs to function well, and like any form of self-care, because that's ultimately what eating healthy, wholesome food is looking after ourselves. It induces serotonin, because all self-care will have that ultimate effect. So that's two simple ones: exercise, diet, thinking about what we put in our body. But also another positive action, it might surprise you, is sleep. So we've already covered the importance of duration and quality of sleep in reducing stress and in maintaining positive mental health in some detail on these lives. So prioritising getting quality sleep, so that's in recognising that our REM sleep is really important for us because it's a part of our sleep that empties our stress bucket. But equally, we need to have that restorative, longer 80% of our sleep as well to restore our bodies. And so doing that is actually a form of positive action. And again, because it's also a form of self-care, because our body needs sleep, it's a great generator of serotonin. So that's number 3. Number 4 is relaxation. So when we are experiencing stress, particularly when it's excessive stress, our breathing becomes faster and it becomes shallower. And when our breathing's fast and shallow, less oxygen reaches our bloodstream and our brain. So our heart rate and our blood pressure increase and our muscles tense. And that's because we're getting ready for some action. Now, relaxation, so intentional relaxation, decreases the effects of stress on our mind and body, and therefore enables us to cope better with everyday stresses, the smaller stresses. So whilst it may actually seem relatively docile, relaxation, it's actually a very positive action when we do it very intentionally, with the intention of reducing our heart rate and slowing down our breathing. And because it again is a form of self-care, it's very good at helping us maintain our serotonin levels. And you'll remember that serotonin is essential for creating that sense of mood balance and stability. So number 5, a little bit less docile, is challenges. So when we feel stressed or anxious or depressed, we can easily and quickly lose sight or lose our sense of purpose. And setting ourselves a challenge that moves us out of our comfort zone is a really great way of occupying our brain and creating a sense of achievement. And as you'll remember, that sense of achievement will always result in a dopamine hit because it's the reward hormone. So any kind of challenge, and of course the irony is that when we're lacking dopamine, we find ourselves in a state of procrastination or self-doubt, or we lack energy or motivation. And yet, actually, the very thing we need is to create dopamine by being motivated to go out and take the action. So it's not very helpful, this stuff, because it's counterintuitive. But when we understand it intellectually, it's a little bit like when I leave here, when I was allowed to go to the gym, and I get in the car and I think, I don't know if I'm really up for this evening, but because I know intellectually that going to the gym and doing some weight training will increase my endorphin levels, I go, and lo and behold, that's exactly what happens. And when I come home, I feel absolutely amazing for having done it. So it's almost cheating that kind of like inclination we have when we can't be bothered, because sometimes we just can't be bothered. And knowing that last time it worked. Number 6 is altruism. So altruism is essentially when we put another person or other people's needs before our own needs. And this might sound a bit counterintuitive when we're talking about looking after our own well-being. But by measuring brain activity, researchers have discovered that the act of helping other people has a really positive effect on our own mental well-being, and even actually on our physical health. And this is because when we help others, positive physiological changes that have been associated with happiness occur in our brain. And these changes are often then followed by much longer periods of calm. So that's really great for serotonin levels. And it's also a great generator of oxytocin, particularly if the act of kindness is really appreciated by the other person. So you get a double hit of happy hormones there. So what's number 7? Well, forgive me, but number 7 is anything. Because actually, anything at all that results in a positive outcome, and it'll be different for everybody, is by definition a positive action, which is the reason why I can't possibly outline all of the examples here. But in addition to exercise, to diet, to sleep, relaxation, perhaps mindfulness as well as part of relaxation, challenges and altruism. There are some even more simple ways of taking positive action. And would you believe that even the act of making a decision about something is a positive action? Taking the first step towards implementing a decision is a positive action. Ticking anything off a list, whether it's putting clothes away, doing the ironing, vacuuming, the washing up, or even just getting up and out and walking the dog, these all constitute positive action, and they all generate happy hormones, ultimately. And we know that the more happy hormones we have in our body, the more our cortisol is under control. And it's cortisol, when it's in our body in excess or for prolonged periods of time, that creates challenges with our mental well-being. So these might seem like really small things, but positive action doesn't need to be big. And in fact, even a very small action can generate a nice dose of happy hormones. So like I said last week, when we take responsibility for how we think and feel, so that's positive thoughts, so that's positivity principle number 1, and therefore how we respond in situations, and also how we act and the action that we take, which is positivity principle number 2, positive action, we put ourselves back in control, and we take back the power to deal with our stressors in order to improve our own mental health and build our own resilience. So applying dose, and tonight in particular, principle number 2 of the 3 principles of positivity, positive action, really helps us to do this. So it's a short one tonight. That's live lesson number 6 of this series. I really hope that this one and the previous ones have been useful. Next week I'm going to be back with live lesson number 7. We're going to explore the principle of positivity number 3, which is positive interaction. I will confirm the date with you soon. It'll either be Monday or Tuesday evening, early next week. And please turn on notifications for this group so that you're alerted when this page goes live. And as always, I'm looking forward to chatting to you then. And if for any reason you can't make it, the recording's always available here soon after. And wishing you a wonderful evening. You take care. Bye-bye.